students, welcome to our chemistry class. Our chapter name is separation of substances. In the last class, we discussed about different methods for the separation of substances. Why we studied that methods? For different purposes, we are using the method of separations. And which are the methods we discussed in our last class? The methods are hand picking, threshing, winnowing, sieving, like different methods we discussed. And in certain methods, it is unable to use these methods. And we want to study more methods to separate certain substances. Today we are going to discuss the further methods how we can separate the substances. So, first of all, we are doing an activity. And in our home, we know we are washing our rice or pulses before cooking. We are taking the rice or pulses in a beaker and adding water to this, and we are just mixing this. Why we are doing this? To make this rice or the pulses clean. To make this, I am just selecting rice. To make this rice clean. And we are cleaning it from what? From some dust particles. Dust particles or some impurities. Actually, here also happens what? A type of separation. That means we are separating this rice or the pulses from some sort of dust particles and impurities. Now the question is, what is the name of this separation? Do this method is having any name? Definitely this method is having a name and we are going to study that. That means when we are putting the rice in this, rice is having little heavier than the dust particles and the impurities. So because of it is heavier, these rice particles will go at the bottom side. It will go at the bottom. And the process of settling or the process of going the heavier particles at the bottom of this liquid is called sedimentation. Sedimentation. So, this is actually what the process of separating this the rice and the dust particles. So, the process name is called sedimentation, and how we can define it? When water is added to a mixture, here the mixture means the rice and also the dust particles and impurities. So, when water is added to a mixture and here the heavier components, this is what heavier. The heavier components will settle and the process is called sedimentation. Here occurs the settling or settle. These heavier particles will settle and that process is called sedimentation. That is the first thing. And also, is the rice is getting settled? Is it enough to separate this dust from the rice? No, we want to remove this water from this beaker. Now the question is, do the separation of water from this beaker is having another name? It is also having another name, and when I am tilting this beaker, what happens? This water will come out. So the name for that is what? Decantation. So, we can also define, this is also a process called decantation, and now I am going to define it. When the water, what is the speciality of this water? This water is getting mixed with the dust particles and impurities. So, the water with the dust and the impurities they can be removed by the process of decantation. How we are removing? We are just tilting this beaker, then the water will go out, but the rice will remain in the beaker. So, this is what decantation. By repeating this process, we can make this rice pure. And here our aim is to separate the rice from the dust particles and impurities. So, here it takes place. And two processes are sedimentation and decantation. I think it's clear for you. Now we can move to the next activity. The next activity is this. I am taking a beaker which is filled with tea and tea leaves. Tea leaves. So this is tea and here we have tea leaves are there. And when I kept it undisturbed, what happens? This tea leaves will get settled and there occurs sedimentation. That is the first thing happens. So, is it possible to do the decantation here? It is possible. That means I am just taking another glass here and collecting the tea here. My aim is to separate this tea and tea leaves. That is, I am just pouring this tea to this glass. But the thing is that I applied the process of decantation. After the process, when I observe, I can see that still in this glass there is having tea leaves are present there. So, it is not at all a proper method to separate this tea and tea leaves. It occurs. Some sort of leaves can be separated using decantation, but it is not a proper method. That means this tea is not 100% separated from the tea leaves. So, I need another method. Which is the method I can prefer here? We can take a strainer. We can take a strainer and when we add this tea is including tea leaves also. So when I add this tea here and I am collecting it in a beaker, oh, there's something. So what happens? For the strainer we know it is having number of holes. Or we can call it as number of pores are present. So when this tea is given to this strainer or when we pour this tea to the strainer, what happens? The tea will come out through these holes. So now you can see that the tea leaves are collected on this strainer. So now we can say that this tea is completely separated from the tea leaves. Here we used the thing called strainer. I already showed the strainer in your last class. So now the question is, what is the name of this process? Do this process is having a name? The name of this process is called filtration. Filtration. That is, here we use the strainer and we done the process called filtration. And now we are going to define this term filtration. It is the process of separating solid from a liquid by passing it through the pores of a substance. That is the thing. I will explain. Here, you know, we have tea leaves. What is that? It is solid. It is solid. And this is what? This is liquid. This tea. So, our aim is to separate this solid from this liquid. So, filtration is the process of separation of solid from liquid by how we are doing? By passing it through tiny holes or pores of a substance. Here we selected the strainer. In some other cases we are selecting another type of filtrating things and we will discuss it later. Now we are defining the process filtration and you want to study the definition. Filtration is the process of separation of solid from a liquid by passing it through pores of a substance. So this is about the definition of filtration. Now we are moving to the another example. That means here we used a strainer, but for certain methods it is unable to use this strainer. That means we need another thing for filtration. I will show you one example. Another activity we are discussing. I am just taking a beaker and mixing water with soil. I am mixing water with soil. Water plus soil. That is the mixture in this beaker. Now I want to separate this water from the soil. That means I want to make this water very clear. That is the aim of my activity or experiment. So how I can do this? First of all, when I just keep it undisturbed, what happens? The soil in this water will get deposited or getting settled, and first of all there occurs the sedimentation. But still when I am looking the water, I can see that still the water is having a dull color. That means it is still having mixed with the soil. It is not completely settling down. There is a problem. So now what I have to do? Here I am just in this process I can separate some of the soil particles from this. That means with the sedimentation. So I am taking another beaker and collecting this dull water. That means some of the soil is getting settled down in the first beaker. Now I am moving this water. I am pouring this water to another beaker and still this water is having a dull color. I want to make it clean. How I can make it clean? Is it possible to do with a strainer? No, when I am giving this water to a strainer, what happens? Again, it will be the same color itself. So, that means I need something having more tiny holes or more tiny small pores. Now, I am taking one piece of cloth. I am taking a piece of cloth and giving this water on this piece of cloth. Now, what happens? That means I am taking a beaker and covering the mouth of this beaker with a piece of cloth. And after that I am giving this water on this cloth. Now you can see that some of the soil particles are left on this cloth. That means here also what happens? Filtration occurs. Here what I am doing is that I am making the holes more small or tiny. But still when I observe the water, still this water is dull. That means it is not at all pure. So I want to make it more clear. How I can do that? In our chemistry lab, we are using this with a paper called filter paper. Filter paper. That is a type of paper which is having very tiny holes or very tiny pores, and we are using it to filter certain substances. So there is having a certain method to use how we are using this filter paper. I will show it. This is actually color paper. Now in my hand there is no filter paper. So I am just demonstrating how we are using the filter paper. Just take a filter paper, fold it, and then I am making a cone using this. I am just making a cone using this. Now you can see the light is not coming through this filter. So now we want to do that. Just take a funnel and put this filter paper on this like this in the hole of the funnel. After that, we just take this water and add this on this filter paper. What happens? I am just doing that. Now this is a beaker and I am collecting the water in this beaker using the funnel and also the filter paper. After the process, you can see that the water is very pure, that is very clear. So using the filter paper, we separated the water and soil. So this is about filtration. Here we discussed about filtration and how we use the filter paper. In this class we discussed about what is sedimentation, what is decantation, and also we discussed about what is filtration. This is all about this. Now we want to discuss another thing, that before that, here we said one of the example of the filtration. Which are the other examples for the filtration? Examples for filtration. We are using this filtration in our kitchen itself. When we are making juice, we are doing the same filtration using some sort of strainers or other devices. We are filtering the juice. That is one of the example. Filtering. Filtering the juice. That is the one of the examples. The another example is that we are using the filtration in the process of making paneer. That means how we are making this paneer? We are making this paneer by adding some sort of lemon juice in the boiled milk. And after adding the lemon juice, you can see that the milk is getting separated as solid and liquid. That means it is getting solidified. So, after the process, we are separating this paneer within the liquid using the filtration process. So, this is another example where we are using the filtration. And also you can add your own examples for the filtration. This is all about the examples for the filtration. Now we are considering another example, another activity. That is, I am just taking a beaker. I am taking a beaker and doing that, taking water and mix salt in it. I am just taking some salt and dissolving the salt in this water or in this beaker. Now my question is it possible to separate this by filtration? No. When we are doing the filtration, there is nothing left in our filter paper or in our strainer. So, the process filtration is not suitable for separating water and salt. Now the question is how we can separate this water and salt. The salt is dissolved in this water. It can done by very simple method. That means I am giving heat on this. That means I am giving heat. Putting this beaker on fire. What happens? This water will get boils after some time and you can see the steam will go outside. That means I am just leaving it for some time. It is continuously boiling and boiling and boiling, and then you can see that at the final stage the total water will go out and the salt will left in this beaker. The salt will left in the beaker as the final product. So this is a type of separation. And now the question is, what is the name of this separation? The name of this separation is vaporization. as evaporation. Vaporization or evaporation. In your textbook, they use it as evaporation and you can use evaporation. So, what is evaporation? How we can define this term evaporation? It is the process of what is actually happening here. At the first stage, this is water, and when we are heating this, what happens? The water is converting into gaseous state or it is converting into steam. So that is we are calling it as evaporation. So we can say it as the process of conversion of water into its vapor is called evaporation. The process of conversion of water into steam or into vapor, both are same. So the process of conversion of water into vapor or water into steam is called what? Evaporation. And here we are doing it by heating the beak. Now, my question is, here we are just leaving the salt here. Now the question is how this salt is coming from, where this salt is coming from? It is coming from salt water. Now, what is the process of separating the salt from the seawater? In your textbook, page number 41 at the top side, figure 5.12, you can see a diagram that is the process of separation of salt from the seawater. Now we are going to discuss how this salt is separating from the seawater. That is, we are collecting the salt water in shallow pits. That means these are some sort of pits. And we are collecting the seawater in the shallow pits. We are collecting the seawater in shallow pits and we are leaving it under sunlight. We are giving the heat energy from the sun, and that means actually what is this seawater? In the seawater there includes water and also inside the salt is there. What is this salt? Salt means this is not only our common salt but also this salt contains other type of minerals and salts also. That means it is some sort of mixture. So the aim is we want to separate this salt, that means different types of salts present in the seawater, and we are putting this under sunlight, and that sunlight is what? Heat energy. So when the sunlight is giving on this seawater, there happens evaporation. So the evaporation happens and the water will go outside and the solid salt will be left in this shallow pits. This is what happens in the process of separation of salt from seawater. And I already said that the final product we get from the evaporation is a mixture of different types of salts, and we want to do some sort of purification methods, and after we are using it as common salt for our cooking. So this is all about the separation of salt from seawater. In your textbook, the thing is explained and you want to read it. Now we are moving to another example, another activity. The activity is this, very simple. I am taking a beaker and taking sand and salt. That means I am just mixing the sand and salt. Sand plus salt. Now my question is how I can can separate this sand and salt which mixed together? Actually, in this case, it is not possible to separate with a single method. Here we are using number of methods. So now we are going to explain how the sand is getting separate with salt. So this is only the mixture of sand and salt. Now I am adding some water in this. I am adding some water in this. This is the mixture of salt and sand. Now I am adding some water and mixing this with water. That means here it is mixing with water. And now I am doing that. I am undisturbed. I am just keeping it undisturbed. Now you can see that the heavier particles will settle down. That means, which is the heavier particle here? Is it salt or sand? Obviously it is sand, and the sand particles will settle down. That means here the first process occurs is our sedimentation. Sedimentation. Now I am collecting this water. What is this water? Water is the mixture of salt and also the present water. That means here the salt is dissolved in this water. So now I am collecting this water to another beaker. That means this sand is getting separated with the salt and water. So now in my hand it is what? The mixture of salt and water. But in the last case we just did that. We collected the salt but the water is getting away. That means it is getting evaporated away. Now I need the water also. That means the first product is sand, the next product is salt, and after that I also need the water also. How I can collect the water also? We studied that it will go away because of evaporation. When we are heating this, the water will convert to steam and they will go away. Now the thing is that I want to collect the water also. How I can collect that? We can do one experiment using kettle. The setup is this. So in this setup, first we said that there occurs sedimentation. After that there occurs decantation. That means here we are just taking the water, the mixture of salt and water to another beaker, means that is decantation. So two processes are happened. Now we are moving to the next thing. I am taking a kettle and add the mixture of salt and water in this. And here I am going to heat this. Before that also I want another setup, that I need a plate and some ice cubes also. I am taking a plate, some ice cubes on this plate, and also I am keeping a beaker here. This is the setup of the experiment. Now I am going to heat this. What happens? When it starts boiling, this water will turn into vapor and there occurs evaporation. That means this steam will come out and that steam will hit on this plate. That steam will hit on the plate. And you know, here we have ice cubes. So that means this steam is getting cool and then the steam is converting. Steam means it is in gaseous state, and after that the steam is converting to water and we are collecting that water in this beaker. So we are continuing this experiment, and after completely this water is getting evaporated and we are collecting the steam and then it is converting to water again. So after the experiment you can see that in this kettle the salt is left here and the water is also separated. Now my question is, here we are putting some ice cubes and we are converting the steam into water again. What is the name of this process? The name of the process is called condensation. Condensation. First we studied about evaporation. That means the process of conversion of water into vapor state. That is what? Evaporation. And now we studied about condensation. Now how we can define this term condensation? Condensation is the process of conversion of the water vapor into water. That means the water vapor into the liquid state is called what? Condensation. You can also see the same condensation in, you just take one beaker and collect some ice cubes in this. After some time, what you can see at the surface of this beaker, you can see there occurs water drops. And where this water drops occurs, actually it is because of the condensation. So, condensation is the process of conversion of water vapor into the liquid form is called condensation. So, this is all about this. And in the process of separation of salt and sand mixture, what we use? First of all, we use sedimentation. Then we use decantation. Then we used here evaporation and also we used condensation. That means for the separation of certain mixtures or certain substances, we need different types of methods. That means we are not selecting a single method. We are using a series of methods that I just explained in one of these examples. So I think it's clear for you. Now it's enough for today. Today we discussed about different methods, discussed about the sedimentation, filtration, decantation and condensation and all. Now my question is, in a beaker, I am collecting this much salt. That is huge amount of salt, and I am mixing this with a little amount of sand. I am mixing. Now I am adding some water to this. That means a little amount of water to this and again mixing this. And following all the steps that I explained in the last experiment, that I am taking the kettle, heating it and collecting the water, salt, sand and all. But when I completed the experiment, I observed that I only got this much salt. That means when I started the experiment, I collected this much of salt, and after the experiment, I only got this much of salt. Why were the other salt left? Have any problem? There is a problem in this experiment. We explained in the last area is okay, but there is a problem with the quantity of the salt, and that we will discuss in our next class. And it's enough for today. You want to read your textbook, and we will meet in our next class. Thank you.